back to another episode of Interjections. We'll call this one post-embarrassment edition. We're on a time crunch today, so I'm going to skip the introductions and we're going to get right into it. I would describe yesterday's performance as a dumpster fire, a clown car, calamity, whatever phrase you want to use. Those are the words I would use to describe yesterday's game against Milan. You have to start by giving credit to Fonseca, who completely outcoached Inzaghi. It all started before the match when you saw the reports, the rumblings that Milan were going to roll out this 4-4-2 that they haven't played yet this season. It was very attacking, two strikers with two pure wingers and the flanks of the midfield, and it worked. And we had absolutely no clue how to respond to it. It allowed Milan to attack us at will for the first 15 minutes of the game, and they found a goal because of just laughable defending when Pulisic puts them ahead. The only surprise was how comically bad the goal we conceded was, with special shouts outs to Mkhitaryan, Pavard, and Summer, who were all just horrible on it. But after that early goal, I honestly thought we were going to win this match because we clawed back into it. We started looking pretty good. We had a I don't want to say dominant, but we had a strong spell to end the first half where we equalized courtesy of a DiMarco, great goal. And going into the half, you had felt like we weathered the storm and we were in control. You had hoped that our championship pedigree, that Inzaghi's, having been through this before, would shine through. We'd walk away with a victory. And yeah, like I said, I was convinced coming out of the half that we were going to win this game. And that lasted for about 2 minutes because as soon as the second half started, Milan were on us. They were creating more chances than us, and they proceeded to dominate the next 45 minutes of the game. They created multiple chances in the first few minutes of the second half. We had no answer. And then Inzaghi went full 2021 on us, and he made two of the most brain-dead substitutions I've ever seen in a derby. He took off Hakan and Mkhitaryan, who were both on yellow cards, to put on Fratesi and Asllani. At that point, our midfield is Fratesi, Asllani, Barella, and we lost the game. The game was over. We were pretty much going all-out attack, leaving ourselves susceptible in the counter. We created 3 chances, but none of them were particularly great. Milan were routinely taking the ball and running at us with ease. We conceded, and it might have been an 89th minute, 88th minute, whatever winner, but it truly felt inevitable for the last 20, 25 minutes of the game. So for the first time in 3 years, we're stuck processing a loss against Milan, trying to understand what went wrong, what led to this disaster, and I will turn it over to Jay to tell me what happened.
I think that was a great encapsulation of what happened. And, when you look back, I think there's so many factors that contributed to this result. The first thing I'm going to say is, surprisingly, this is the least upset I've been about a derby loss or a loss to a rival in an extremely long time. I think the fact that we'd won so many derbies recently obviously kind of contributed to that, where one loss, against 6 wins doesn't feel so bad. However, another contributing factor is that Milan just outright deserved it from start to finish. And what contributed further to that was just this utter malaise that we came to the game with, which just sucked out all the life from the occasion. Everything about that felt off from start to finish, from top to bottom. And I can't remember the last time, like I said, where I just found myself not caring. At the end, I was like, yeah, whatever, they're probably going to snatch it. But even if we fail to hold on for a win, whatever, like the draw or the loss, it makes no difference to me. And when they conceded, I was like, yeah, that feels about right. That's pretty much exactly what they deserve. And so here we are. We'll never know the truth of these things. Only the players themselves will know deep down. But that's never stopped me from making wild, baseless allegations before, so here's another one. I think the players absolutely let the hype of the Man City result and the fact that we've been so dominant in recent derbies get to their head. I think, all the deserved praise that we received following a stalwart defensive showing at Man City just inflated some egos. And like I said, the dominance that we've had over Milan just put some complacency into these guys. And I can't remember the last time we went into a derby just so expected to win. I mean, when you mirror the team's situations heading into this match, you have us coming off a heroic showing at Man City, being praised by the media, and the players themselves are going to be feeling really good about themselves. And then you've got Milan, who have just been trashed by Liverpool, coming off a slate of underwhelming performances in the league. There are rumours in abundance that the coach is going to be replaced, sacked by not even particularly good prospects, by the likes of Tudor or Terzic or Sarri or whoever it might be. There were even rumours that regardless of whether he wins the game or not, that Fonseca will be sacked. And there's been all this locker room kind of dramas about Teo Hernandez and Leao kind of having some trouble with the coach and all this kind of stuff. And the situations of the two camps couldn't be more different heading into this game. And so everything pointed to an Inter kind of convincing win. And I really think the players let that get to their heads and let that debase them psychologically, mentally, and just it felt like very few, if any of them, really showed up. And I never like blaming the coach outright for these kinds of things because every player is an individual and needs to take responsibility for the way they prepare themselves. A great example of this is how hyped up someone like Tammy Abraham is. He has no fucking loyalty to Milan. He's been there for like 2 weeks. What does he care? But you can see how clearly passionate and how invested he was. I didn't see any fire from anyone, even the likes of Barella and Bastoni, Dimarco, the so-called big Interistas. The big Interisti, look at how they reacted after the game, just a sigh, kind of like shrugging, yeah, oh well, we lost, They know they fucked up. They didn't muster any energy. They didn't muster any fire. And I think that stems from the coach. Not to say that Limone himself is like a conceited kind of guy, but the complacency in his lineup, in his tactical setup, in his instructions, in his substitutions, everything was just obscene. I mean, let's go from the lineup. This goes back to what I was saying earlier in previous episodes where we talked about the Mercato, when I just said it is a disgrace to go into a new season fielding the exact same starting lineup as you did the season before, especially when a good chunk of that starting lineup is well over their 30s or well into their 30s. You've got Acerbi, you've got Mkhitaryan, you've got Darmian, you've got Sommer, and these guys are now all just a year longer in the tooth, whatever that saying is. And especially in some of these guys like Sommer and especially Mkhitaryan, you can see this drop-off, just the sheer arrogance from not just Inzaghi, but the management to think that you can get away with this shit. I've said so many times throughout the course of end of last season to the first part of this season, history teaches us that you cannot do this. No successful team ever goes out and says, we won the title last season. That's proof that we don't have to improve. We're already good enough. That is arrogance in its highest. In our instance, it's kind of, or forced upon us because of our budget reasons, but, then maybe don't go spend 22 million on the likes of fucking Martinez and Palacios. Use your funds a bit smarter if that's the case. But in any instance, the lineup was a joke. I don't know why Mkhitaryan is starting games when Zielinski put in such a great showing at Man City.
Why are you calling it a joke? Like, it was our best starting lineup. Why it's a joke?
The fact that we're still trotting out the same 11 from last season is the joke. There's been no improvement. There's been a downgrade in the fact that these guys are a year older and in many cases significantly underperforming. Some of the guys look complacent. Lautaro has been trash for 6 months. If you consider 3 months in the last season, 3 months to start this season, one half of a calendar year. was going to finish with that, but I kind of touched upon it a bit sooner. But the point I'll end with is precisely what you brought up, Andrew. Those old fears of Inzaghi, the old remnants of cowardice that we thought that he had exercised following his triumphant Scudetto run. All those kinds of deep-rooted insecurities kind of reared their heads again last night. I mean, the over-reliance on old players like Mkhitaryan instead of just giving someone like Zielinski the start, or even Fratesi, as poor as he was. The fear in taking off a player because he was booked. I mean, you've got to trust your senior players and your leaders to be disciplined and not get themselves sent off, but Inzaghi just refuses to do that. I thought he had slightly improved upon that towards the end of last season, but we saw it here again. He took off one of his most important keys in Hakan and essentially, throwing on Fratesi and Deslani, simply surrendered the midfield.
Yeah, there's a lot to digest from that, but I would I would comment on the complacency claim, and yeah, I kind of agree. And it was funny how we talked about it last episode and how it ended up being just like that for the whole team in this match. I don't know really what's how can it happen like that in a derby? Maybe it is because we won the last 6, but it was the first 10 minutes, especially the first 10 minutes when they scored finally. It felt like it was the worst football we played with Inzaghi in those first 10 minutes, or maybe it was 15, like Andrew mentioned. And then in the second half, like Andrew mentioned as well, it was almost the same, not exactly, but the approach was completely wrong, and that was really surprising, because usually but during the last season the team kind of they grew up to be like a really fearful and merciless team who just runs over the opponent. And in this case, it was the total opposite, and we just let Milan to play like they wanted. And I've been wondering this since the match ended, and I was first like, okay, Fonseca outplayed Inzaghi and stuff like that, but I'm not really sure was that the case. I'm almost going to put more blame on the players, and when it's the whole squad, of course, that goes to Inzaghi to figure out what he did wrong. Maybe there wasn't like I don't know. He didn't do his job because the team looked like what we saw, but the players, they weren't doing their job correctly. Like Jay mentioned, there wasn't this proper approach, proper fire in them in this match. Like for the whole match, it wasn't like that. There were like few episodes when we went forward that there was like a purpose, but other than those cases, it was very dull, and that was surprising. That was surprising because it's a derby, so you would expect the players to like be there. And I want to add one comment I read from Bergomi, which I kind of agree, or I find that interesting, and maybe I'm gonna agree with that opinion, is that maybe this team, it's not good enough to play two these types of games we had this week, the City away match and then the Milano derby. Like the City match went really well. We didn't win, but it was like a battle, and we fought it and got the away point, which is like good enough for sure. But it feels like maybe it took too much from the team. Like it took a toll, the traveling and the 90 minutes full focus on the system, the defending. Maybe it was just too much, like physically, but also also mentally, and somehow it switched to this total lackluster, which is like, it's of course unacceptable, but like it can't be like this. Like if we play well against City, then we totally fall flat against Milan. That can't be. That can't be. You can't do that. But I kind of buy that argument that this team is not like ready for these types of big matches like all the time. Uh, I don't know if I was able to like bring forward my thought on this. I'm a bit confused still. Why? How could how the match can go like that? When the Because we know the team is good, the players are good, in my opinion, but the performance by all players, almost all players, were very under the bar. They were maybe, I don't know, Dimarco, maybe Bastoni. They played pretty well, but apart from those, I think the rest, they were really poor.
Miko, you make a good point, but this is just ill advised to use a phrase that you hear sometimes. This was a ghetto fabulous decision by Inzaghi. If you make the point of the team isn't strong enough to play two top matches in a week, it doesn't have the depth, it doesn't have the, I don't know, characteristics. Well, we went and decided to buy a fancy new car when we're past due on our mortgage, because that 1 point against City is highly unlikely to matter in the grand scheme of things. But we went for the aesthetic, we went for the fun, we wanted to show we were European royalty. So we went to Manchester and we gave it our all. And as a result, we came home with nothing left in the tank. And the game, the more important game, the game we had to win, the game that actually will matter more towards our season, we didn't show up. And I honestly thought Inzaghi, I'm not going to blame Inzaghi too much for this, because I honestly thought he managed it well with rotations. He did a good job, mixing it up, giving Taremi a start in Manchester. It felt like we were on the right path. But when you listen to Morata talk this to the media, it really sounds like these people are delusional enough to think that we're going all in the Champions League this year, and the Scudetto is not a priority. And as long as they qualify for the Champions League again next year, they're going to be content. And it's just laughable, because there was just no way we're winning a Champions League. It's just not going to happen. We might have a quarterfinal run in us if we can avoid like the Real Madrids and the Bayerns and all that. But we're not winning the Champions League unless we get the luckiest draw this side of 2022. So I'm not sure who that blame falls on. I don't want to blame Inzaghi for that, because I think he got the rotations right midweek. I don't know, man.
Yeah, but my point was that, or for that Inzaghi picked first City and then expected the same against Milan. I don't think Inzaghi knew that how flat we would fall against Milan right from the start. Like, players weren't doing their job properly, and I don't think Inzaghi planned that, and I don't think he knew how taxing the City match was, or that's just a hypothesis or a theory that it took so much energy, like mental and physical energy, from the team, and maybe Inzaghi didn't see that if that is the case, and they just couldn't do what way they were supposed to do. But yeah,
I don't know. I mean, look, here's what worries me about that argument, right? We know Inzaghi, and it goes back to something that Andrew and Jay were saying earlier. We know what his kind of dangerous tendencies are, or what he kind of reverts to when he feels uncomfortable. And I want to believe that he prioritized Man City over Milan and kind of overestimated how tired the players might be or how difficult Milan might be. But here's what worries me about that. He played Bissek instead of Pavard against Manchester City, and he played Zielinski instead of Mkhitaryan against Manchester City. Presumably, he was saving both of those guys and Hakan Sorry, no, not Hakan, but he was saving both of those guys for Milan. And so the fact that he thought that his best hand was to play Mkhitaryan and Pavard against Milan worries me, because that to me signifies that he probably wasn't underestimating Milan. He was actually saving what he thought was his best resources for Milan. And those guys were both disasters. Like, we have to start holding these players accountable. Like, everyone loves to complain about bench players and all this other sort of stuff. We gave up probably one of the worst goals I've ever seen us give up in 10 minutes into that match, because Mkhitaryan didn't bother to jump for the ball or try to challenge the player when Pulisic took the ball off of him. And then Pulisic ran through our entire midfield and defense like he was prime Messi. He like ran through Hakan, and then both Pavard and Acerbi were slow to react, and he just ran into our box. It's just like shot a goal. Like, it was unbelievable to me that no one decided to defend. And then, like, yeah, we got better. But honestly, Andrew, I don't think that we were at any point in that match necessarily looking to win. I think we stabilized towards the end of that first half. But right back, as soon as the second half started, we were on the back foot again. And the team just did not come out with any sense of urgency. The hubris, like the sheer arrogance that all the players were exhibiting, other than maybe DiMarco, who was really still with it, it was mind-boggling. And it definitely seemed like the players were focused more on the fact that we've dominated these guys for 6 matches than the fact that this is a derby. We were kind of disclaiming all of our predictions last week by saying, yes, Milan sucks right now and Fonseca's under pressure, but it's a derby. It's a derby. It's a derby. You never know what's going to happen. It's going to be tight. Like, we kept saying all that. And the reason we said that is because it's a derby. If fans know it, players should know it. But no one on the pitch seemed to behave that way. And the other thing I'll say is we were lazy. Like, that's the thing that bothers me the most. We were lazy. There's a reason, I think, that Inzaghi always takes out DiMarco 65, 70 minutes in, because by the end of that match, he gave up a really poor foul in the 89th minute that led to the free kick that led to Milan's goal. In addition to that, on the free kick that led to Milan's goal, Frattesi didn't even bother jumping or covering his man, who ended up scoring on that goal. So again, you got to start holding some of these players accountable. And if they went in there with this attitude that, like, hey, we've dominated these guys, we have 6 matches on these guys, and that's a performance that they came out with, like, yeah, you should hold Inzaghi accountable for sure. The substitutions he made were terrible. I don't know why in a derby you take out Barella and Hakan in the 63rd minute. It's completely inexcusable. I don't care if they're on one leg, they're better than their substitutes. So that was completely crazy. And then to take out Bastoni in the 83rd minute, we completely were gone when he was at, because the way we played for the last 30 minutes was basically having Bastoni serve as an auxiliary midfielder, and basically he was up in front of the halfway line the entire time, which also left us open to the counter, by the way. So that was a tactical decision he made. And then he took out Bastoni, and it made no sense. So again, tactically, it made no sense. The players were playing with almost no fire, and it's just inexcusable for a match where it's a derby. And honestly, we have not looked good. Other than the Atalanta match, we've not looked good all season. So I don't know where that where that arrogance was coming from, but it was completely inexcusable.
I remember one case when Tammy Abraham got to the box and got that really good scoring chance. I remember that chance, like how it evolved. That was like incredible how lazy we played. That was a perfect example of the laziness you mentioned, Irfan.
Yeah,
How
and Acerbi was really bad. He had a bad match, and Pavard, like, I don't get it. Like, they were just not good. And yeah, on that chance, Miko was I don't know what Acerbi was doing on that chance, but he was just kind of in no man's land, and just out of position, and not even in a straight line on the backside. So it was a frustrating game.
Irfan, you made the point of Frattesi failing to mark Gabbia on the winning goal. Why is Frattesi even marking Gabbia on the final goal? Just a horrible matchup.
I think he wasn't like. I think
Was
he was
zonal, not
more
man
like.
marking.
I think he was like defending the area more than the guy,
Yeah.
because Gabbia ran all the way. like from a different position. I tried to check how it really went, but I don't think no one was like marking the guys.
How concerned are you guys on a scale of 1 to 10 about Lautaro? Is this just another one of his blue periods where he'll come out of, or is there a bigger argument to be had here? Because I feel
Yeah,
like this is
yeah.
just, I don't want to say vindication, but because I obviously support the guy, but I feel like this is just more proof of what I've been saying for a long time, which is that I don't think you can call someone an elite or world class player when he goes missing for like, I don't know, between 25% on a good year to 50% of the year on a bad year every single year of his career. Like you can't do that and be considered great or world class. Like I think the marker of world class, the marker of being a world class player is doing it week in week out. And Lautaro, as good as he is when he's on, you cannot deny the fact that he is off for like I said, minimum 3 months of the year, at worst 6 months, and that's a huge
I
problem.
I know,
Nine
but
million.
here's the thing about focusing on Lautaro for this match in particular, right? The problem I have with that is that it it's not he still had an assist, right? He had the assist that DeMarco scored. He was involved in the play a lot. He almost set up Thuram for our second goal. So he was actually more, I thought, in timing and more active than he has been in previous matches. So I concede that there's a big drought going on with him right now and that it seems to happen every year. But I'm almost more willing to give him the benefit of the doubt right now because he has been on like extra duty with the international team also, that like he needs to snap out of it. I actually saw him more game ready, more game shape this match than I've seen him previously. So look, I agree that if we want to have a conversation about whether Lautaro is truly world class, I think that's a real conversation to have. But in the context of this match, I kind of feel like, going back to your point about how you don't go back into the same season with the same starting 11. Well, one of the things that Inzaghi needs to do, and I really do think he needs to do this, or there's like an actual 5 alarm fire for me with respect to this club, is that he needs to start like ruffling these guys up a little bit and start making some like real lineup changes and demoting some people to like get them fired up again and to like get them to wake up, because Zielinski should replace Mkhitaryan going forward. As far as I'm concerned, Mkhitaryan should not be starting again after the way he's been playing. And then honestly, Pavard, who I am a huge fan of, should be benched for Bissek until Pavard gets his head out of his ass. Like, and go with De Vrij instead of a Cherby if you're going to do that. Maybe playing a Cherby twice in the same week is just asking too much. So I think like he needs to start making some changes to like send messages to some of these players, because the complacency is completely inexcusable. On Lautaro, again, I feel like he was still involved yesterday, and he set up the first goal. He almost set up another goal. So I don't know if my takeaway from that match is that Lautaro is piss poor. I think he's actually turning the corner with us. But yeah, we need him to score. I mean, I said that last week. Like, we can't have Lautaro not scoring goals. Like, we need his goal scoring to survive.
I agree with what Irfan said. I think Lautaro was okayish in a sense that he was in the game. He got those volleys. They were like okayish executed. Didn't score, but he was in the game. Like Irfan said, he assisted once and was close to get the second assist. They combined this one nice play with Thuram where Lautaro let the ball go to his feet and then straight to Thuram, and Thuram passed the ball back to him, but it was a bit poor pass and stuff like that. And he was there, but like he himself said that he's the responsible. He's the captain, so he should do better. And yeah, he should be scoring goals. We should try to get him even more involved to get more chances, because we know his scoring rate isn't like great always. So he need more of those chances to finally score. I want to compare to Thuram. I think Thuram was much poorer than Lautaro in this match. I think he needs to like he has 4 goals, so that's cool, but he needs to really get back going now. And maybe that's an issue. Like in this match, the issue was that they both played 90 minutes and there was no shuffling in that area, and maybe that goes to Inzaghi then when he wanted to rather change the whole midfield rather than the strikers. But apart from Lautaro, it's a good point by Irfan that, and I hope we see more of the rotation, in a sense that players who played well, like Bissek, for instance, maybe even Zielinski, he has played much, but he was excellent against City. I hope they will get more minutes now or from now on, because Pavard, he was terrible. He was like missing tackles all the time against Leao. Like let Leao come into the box all by himself, because Pavard like totally missed the guy with his tackle. That looked bad, and yeah, he needs to really like clear his head and be more focused on what he's doing. And well, the goal we conceded in the 10th minute, that's obvious, a huge fuck up. So yeah, I want to see more of Bissek from now on.
I think I agree with you, Miko, that Thuram was a bigger problem yesterday than Lautaro. I'm not saying Lautaro played well, because there were so few individuals on this team who played well, but Thuram's performances this week were not good. He couldn't stay on side. I feel
Like
like
I
I
said,
might
it's trying to be too cute. It's just trying to be too cute. It's not good fundamentals like we saw from someone like Taremi against Man City. It's just all this kind of flashy bullshit, which he doesn't have the technique to pull off most of the time. When it does come off well, and he's in good form and he's in the zone and he's feeling himself and he's in a state of flow like he was for the first couple of games, then yeah, it comes off and it goes well. But we know this. Thuram's not like a particularly or exceptionally technical player. And when he tries all these back heels and one touch link up plays and all these quick give and goes on the fly, it's going to lead in a lot of turnovers, which is what we've seen the last couple of games. Sometimes I wish the guy would just be a little bit more serious. And I don't know if serious is the right word. Help me out here. What's the word I'm looking for?
Well, I get what you mean, like serious in a sense that you don't try some flicks and tricks all the time. But,
exactly. Like you can't have too much fun with it, even if you're in a great state, even if you're in a great form. I think he won Player of the Month, by the way. I don't know if it was after or before or after the game where they handed him a fucking copy of the new FIFA and the Player of the Month trophy, but either way, he didn't look particularly happy receiving the trophy. But yeah, so he's Player of the Month. Great start, but yeah, like you said, got to be a bit more serious. Can't have too much fun sometimes. And when you see him just consistently failing these one-touch, no-look, backheel passes and these intricate, first touch pass and run kind of situations, you just like, can you just fucking relax for a second, mate? Just take it a bit easy and do some of the simple shit first. And when you don't get that, I think it's extremely frustrating from your forwards, because it just means you hemorrhage possession every single time you play the ball forward.
So there's one name we haven't discussed much, and it's going around everywhere. So should we talk about Aslani?
No, I really don't think so. I mean, I think Irfan has made some, really good points about Aslani being a scapegoat, and I've gone on record many times as saying I think he's a bumfuck mediocre player, but it doesn't change the fact that Irfan is ultimately correct, that he's not to blame for this result today. And we've spoken about this as recently as like last week or the week before, that players like Fratesi and Aslani need a bit of hand-holding, and they need to be supported by the midfield generals like Calhanoglu and Barella. Like, you can play Aslani if you flank him with Barella and Calhanoglu. Likewise, you can play Fratesi if you have him play alongside Calhanoglu and Barella. You cannot play Aslani if you throw him in with fucking Fratesi and then Zielinski, who's been with the squad for like a month. It's just not gonna work. It's like a bar owner or like a restaurant owner giving the keys to the dish boy on a busy Saturday night and being like, hey, you run the restaurant, you run the fucking kitchen. You can't do that shit. Things are gonna go wrong. And I'm personally a bit tired of the Aslani discussion. Again, as much as I enjoy ripping on the guy,
No, I couldn't agree more. Like, here's my problem with the Aslani thing. Let me just say once and for all, I don't think Aslani is that great. Like, I don't think he's some burgeoning talent or anything like that, but I think he's a serviceable backup, right? But here's the issue. The issue is whenever anything happens, whenever there's a draw or a loss, and the guy played even 15, 20, 30 minutes, all of a sudden, all I hear about from every fan is Asllani sucks. Asllani sucks. He's not good enough. He's not good enough. It's like, guys, was he on the pitch when we scored 10 minutes in and when one player made all of our players look like complete idiots? Was he involved in giving up the goal in the 89th minute in any capacity? No. And so again, it's lazy to me. That's the problem. Like when we go and we look for a scapegoat when something like this happens and we just pin it on Asllani, it's lazy analysis. It's lazy emotional bullshit, right? Like hold the guy accountable for not being great enough. Hold him accountable for lacking in the position that he plays. That's all fine. But to watch that match yesterday and the first thing that comes out of your mouth is Asllani is lazy. And the fact that like I'm seeing these stupid statistics like, oh, once Asllani was on the pitch, Milan started knocking in 13 chances and blah, blah, blah. Well, did you notice how we were playing when Asllani came on? Did you notice how we were ruthlessly attacking and leaving ourselves open for the counter? Because that's the tactical decision we made later on in the match. Did you see Bastoni basically playing in the other half the entire time before he was subbed? Like, again, like Asllani, you can think that he's not good enough. That's totally fine. It's a valid opinion. You can back it up even with statistics, right? Like that's all great. But whenever anything happens, we just hear about Asllani, sell him, this. Like really? Selling Asllani yesterday would have made us win, would have prevented any of those goals, would have made us play better, would have made Mkhitaryan play better, would have made Pavard wake up, would have made Lautaro and Thuram play better. Like, again, it's just lazy. That's the problem with it. It's lazy.
Yeah, and when Çalhanoğlu went out, I don't think he was particularly good yesterday either. So
no, he was horrible.
It wasn't like it changed much our game that, okay, now Asllani came in, so we like lost the game in that moment. No, I think more is about that Asllani and Fratesi both came in, and then when Fratesi is there, it's like a one man less in the build-up because he's like hiding everywhere all the time, and he's not part of the build-up play properly. Maybe that's the instruction of Inzaghi. I don't know, because of the playing style of Fratesi, but that's like making it much harder to do our cycling because there's one less guy you can pass to, like Asllani and the central defenders have one less guy to pass to because Fratesi is like nowhere to be found to pass the ball to.
Fratesi's been one of the bigger disappointments recently. As much as I like the guy and as much as I wanted us to sign him even before we were ever linked to him, I gotta say he's not developed as I had hoped. You know, I still think in the right context he's not as like poor on the ball as many make out. I think it's a matter of nerve really, and also the role he's playing. I think he's told to get on the end of things as opposed to be behind the ball and beyond the ball. Having said that, yeah, he needs to do a lot better as well. And even if the instructions are what they are, sometimes he needs to drop back and help cycle the ball around and hustle a bit more to make himself available for passes. As for Asllani, the final thing I'll say about him is, you know, it's easy to make fun of him because his uselessness kind of makes him an easy target, even if he's not to blame for any of it. It's like you're a dad in your 50s, you got some shit job, locked in a unhappy marriage, you come home and your adult son is fucking unemployed and lounging around eating Cheetos all day. Of course, he's not to blame for, you know, your job being shit, but you take it out on him. It's a national American pastime, you know. It's just what you do. He's just the easy one there who's lounging around, probably woke up at 2 p.m., you know, after staying up till 4 a.m. playing video games. He's just the guy you take it out on. It's just the way it is. And Asllani happens to be that guy. And like I said, his general kind of uselessness compounds it, even if he is inherently not to blame at all.
The reason people are so upset about the substitutions yesterday is Asllani and Fratesi did not cost us the game per se. I thought they were both invisible pretty much from the moment they came on. But if you look at the match and say, what would give us a better chance to succeed? Hakan did not play well, but if you leave him on the pitch, he has the chance of improving his performance. He has a chance of pulling something special out of a hat. He's proven that time and time again. All it takes is one moment. I can't think of a single moment at Inter where Aslani has pulled something out of a hat. It's just about probabilities. If you would have put on Taremi for Taram yesterday, you would have been in a much better position to salvage a point. But I'm not, like Jay said, I'm not blaming Aslani or Fertesi for this game. They're not the direct reasons we lost. All three defenders played poorly. Mkhitaryan and Hakan were both poor. If we're singling out people who played well yesterday, the list is honestly summer. I can't give you another name.
And Dimarco as
Yeah,
well.
DeMarco too.
DeMarco
Until the end.
DeMarco.
But final thing I'm gonna say about Aslan is we extended his contract for 1 more year.
No, but look. I think Andrew's point. And I think some of the frustration that a lot of Inter fans have that gets kind of misplaced and allocated to Aslani is that we honestly don't really have any sort of spark off the bench. And I know, Jay, you've talked about this a little bit, but like, we don't have like a tricky player or like an aggressive attacking player that we can come in that can kind of influence the game. Like, there's no real game changer that's on our bench. Like, maybe Fratesi plays that role to an extent, but Fratesi is also kind of like a one-trick pony in certain ways, right? Like, he kind of serves like a very specific purpose.
Yeah, not certain ways. He just is. He is a one-trick pony.
He just is. And so we don't have like anybody off the bench where like if one of the starters, especially in the midfield, is struggling, you're like, okay, let's go in and let's bring in this guy, and people are going to get excited that he's coming out. He's going to help change the game. Like, the subs are all just kind of lesser versions, in some cases much lesser versions of the starters, but there's no like tactical difference maker sitting on the bench that we can bring on when a starter is struggling or when we really, really need a goal, And so again, like I think yesterday's match was incredibly frustrating because, like Andrew said, like, you cannot just take off Hakan and even Mkhitaryan, right? Like, you can't take off both of those guys and replace them with Aslani and Fratesi. We know that doesn't work. Like, we talked about that last week, that those two together, it doesn't work. Like, when we need a goal, we attack in those two kind of pivots, which is Barella and Hakan and DeMarco and Bastoni. So you can't like destroy that and then expect us to like have some sort of cohesive attacking. Like, it's not going to happen. And so Inzaghi, I think, does deserve a lot of the blame for insisting that those players with the yellow card have to come out at like, thinking with no other thought in his mind. Like, you just cannot do that. But again, I really do feel like if we had a kind of inspiring player on the bench, that would take away some of the frustration that people kind of, in my opinion, unjustly just pour on Aslani, because they're just like, wow, like, we're going to sub out Hakan, we're going to sub out this person, and up here comes Aslani. It's like, okay, guys, there's really nobody on the bench that we can put in that will kind of change the game. Though I actually do think that a better use of the substitutions yesterday would have been to bring on Taremi, who I think has shown some good, build-up play and good instincts in the attacking phase, even if he hasn't gotten his goal yet.
The most comical decision yesterday was taking off Bastoni with, 5-10 minutes to go, and then choosing to play DeMarco for 90 minutes again.
Yep.
So we could put Augusto at left wing back. That was the dumbest decision Inzaghi made yesterday, and you could argue directly led to us conceding. But I am growing increasingly concerned about the trajectory of not only this season, but this squad, as I start looking around at what is becoming the rapid decline of players like Acerbi and Mkhitaryan who need to be replaced. I'm looking at the 25 million euros we wasted this summer on players who are not going to play this year, despite us having direct needs in the squad. I am growing concerned. I am convinced we're not winning the Scudetto this year. I feel confident in saying Napoli are the favorites right now in my mind. When you look at how Conte has them playing, they just went into Turin and got a draw. I'm struggling to find reasons for optimism for the rest of the season. Go ahead, Jay.
Everyone was talking about like the complacency and holding these guys accountable. I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that they know that they have no competition Like when they know that the club is flat fucking broke. So, Lautaro's
Yeah,
thinking,
great point.
what are they going to do? Fucking replace me with Osimhen, or go out and buy some player to actually challenge me? Like Lautaro knows he's the captain and bona fide starter, no matter what. Now, do I think Lautaro's shit form is down to him being lazy and not training hard enough? No, 100% no. Other guys, a little bit. I think it contributes. When there's such little pressure on you because you're the designated starter and you know that your rival is going to be some underdeveloped youth like Aslani or some over the hill prick like Mkhitaryan, there's not enough competition. As much as it sounds like a kind of toxic Juventus Bayern kind of thing to pursue, you do really need to build internal competition. As they say, iron sharpens iron, competition begets more competition and all that kind of thing. And you need to facilitate that by adding fresh blood to the squad when you can. And that is why that is one of the reasons why I'm constantly so agitated or irritated by this absolute absurd approach to the Mercato we took, which was to just leave it as it is, by and large. I think that is an unforgivable sin. I think I'm not going to say that we're out of the Scudetto race. I don't think that's true, but I think it's going to be very hard this season. I think if we can make it to January, we actually need to recognize that and buy like someone who is meant to be a starter somewhere, some position. But this band-aid approach of just maintaining the status quo, it doesn't work. You can't maintain a team when half of them are fucking 35 years old. It just doesn't work.
Anna, quickly add on the difference maker conversation that I think Inzaghi has built up a great system how to play his game and with the players he has. And that's true. We don't have difference makers to like make the difference when we really need it, when the things aren't going well. Because our game requires that all the players or most of the players are like truly in the game and they are like executing it as they're supposed to. And we didn't do that against Milan at all. The players weren't in it. So that's why it failed completely. And in those cases, we need those difference makers. And when we don't have them, it's like what we saw. It's a bit bland and nothing's coming out of it. Because the system is not working, and that requires a lot from the players to execute the system well. So that's a bit of an issue, and it's interesting to see, are we going to like address that later on? Well, I would hope in January, but I don't believe that's gonna happen. And we wanted, or Inzaghi wanted to add Goodmanson this summer to bring some kind of a spark. Well, the club didn't provide him that, so here we are now. So it's a bit tough if Inzaghi can't pull everything out of the players so that they execute his system correctly. Then it's a problem.
Fair point, absolutely fair point. The ownership is a joke. Like we've seen these, and not to get all political about it, but we've seen how these American owners don't understand this demented ecosystem, better known as the country of Italy. We see it with Roma, we see it with Fiorentina, we've seen it with other clubs. They simply do not. Milan as well. Milan are the fucking lucky ones in that Milan were the lucky ones out of the bunch. But point is, like, they just don't understand the madness, the chaos that is calcio, that is Serie A, that is Italy, and this fucking by the books correct approach that American companies take, it's not going to work. There's a certain chaos to football in Italy which they just will never understand unless you're within that ecosystem. People like Marotta understand it. People like Galliani used to understand it, but fucking Friedkin and Suluku or whatever that girl's name is from Lena Suluku or whatever her name is from Roma, who recently resigned. These guys, Todd Bowley, they don't fucking get it. They simply do not understand it. And I really hope that Oak Tree have the sense to at least just hand over the keys to Marotta and just at least let him operate within certain constraints. But so far the signs are not great because we see them interfering with the likes of Hermoso and Cabal or whoever it is. Maybe if we had fucking Hermoso to come off the bench, we wouldn't have to, watch an exhausted DiMarco for fucking 90 minutes, Final comment for me. Final thing that I want to say this episode is I just want to use some wanky corporate language and circle back onto the point about complacency. This is all about complacency. This result is all about complacency and also a degree of mental fatigue. I think this season and where we're at now, and Andrew mentioned, having concerns about the greater season as a whole. I agree. We feel like we're just woefully underprepared in every aspect of the club. The players seem like they're on vacation. As Irfan mentioned, we haven't played well in any game this season except for like an hour at Man City and Atalanta as well. I think we played like shit in the other win that we had, which was Lecce anyway.
Yeah.
So we haven't played well this entire fucking season. On top of that, we've got players underperforming left, right, and center, our individual players. I mean, we've got mistakes from the coach. We've got I don't want to dwell on this again, but in my opinion, what was a joke of a transfer market. And I think, this whole season just feels like you're like, this year is the year where I'm going to start hitting the gym and cutting out junk food. And next thing you know, it's fucking September and you're like, fuck, where'd the year go already? That's what this season feels like to me. 5 or 6 match days in, shit's a mess. And we are in a big struggle if we're going to achieve the goals that we set out for ourselves this season. I mean, so much was made of this club's resilience, not conceding a goal in the last 15 minutes, that amazing defense, that focus, that intensity. In 5 games, we've already done it 3 times. So we have an 80% record, a 60% record of conceding goals in the last 15 minutes, whereas that's something we kind of prided ourselves on last season of not doing. And it just feels like we have such a loose grasp on points or on like games. Last season, the difference between us and the chasing pack was that when we had a result in our hands, it was like you needed to, to quote a great American in Charlton Heston, from my cold dead hands, they had to pry it out of our cold dead hands for us to like let any points slip out from between our fingers. This season is just the opposite. It's like our grasp on games, on situations, on the mercato, on everything just seems so fucking loose. We just don't have a tight grip on anything. And as a result, shit is just spilling out left, right, and center. And yeah, that is a big concern. And this recent derby loss was hopefully a massive slap in the face.
I know we have to go, so I'll end with this note, maybe slightly more positive, which is that Asllani will save us, so we don't need to worry about all this stuff. No, my final note is I agree. This is going to be a dogfight going into the end for the Scudetto. I don't care about the Champions League; it's a shit show. But for the league, it's going to be a fight all the way till the end. Napoli definitely looks strong, and they have a chance. But I'll end with this: Juventus have not given up a goal in 5 matches. That defense, the Thiago Motta defense, is clicking. They just can't score. So let's hope we figure out a way to score with Lautaro before they figure out a way to score with Vlahovic.
The fucking disrespect. I mean, talking about Napoli and talking about Juventus when we just got our asses slapped by Milan. Not a mention to
check the table. Check the table, bro.
Oh yeah, I see them on equal points with us.
Yeah, exactly. So, not concerned about that.
For all the bullshit about their situation, they're literally on equal points with us. So fucking whatever.
Yeah, you will calm down when we win the next 2-3 matches. So let's cool our heads a bit. This propaganda in the
right.
is a bit too much. So
yeah. All right, I gotta go. We'll be back next week though after our 1-1 draw to Udinese. We will catch you all then.
Stop. Oh gosh.
See you guys.
See ya.
All right. Forza Inter.